Hey, welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. If you guys could subscribe, that'd be great, and appreciate you stopping by. Going to discuss something a little bit differently today. I know it's not the normal hub on this station, but I have thrown up some Marlins stuff recently, and I'm in the media. This is my favorite baseball team. This story interests me, and I wanted to discuss it. So the Marlins have decided they are going to not bring back their television voice, Paul Severino. The news was broken, at least the place I saw it was Barry Jackson. I don't know if Paul announced it first, but it actually appears that he did. So Paul Severino announced on his social media page that he is not going to be brought back as the Marlins voice. He had been the Marlins voice for the last 7 years. He says, it was brought to my attention today that I will not be invited back as the TV voice of the Marlins for 2025 and beyond. I gave the broadcast and the audience everything I had for 7 years. Wants to thank a lot of people for the bottom of his heart. Thanks his producers and to the fans. Thank you for all the kind words. Throughout my time here, I've heard the national broadcasters are liked and local broadcasters are loved. Thank you for showing love and welcoming me to our broadcast team and our broadcast team to our living rooms every single night. He says, I pride myself on my work ethic. These sort of jobs are precious, and it's the only type of job I ever wanted. So he then says, lastly, I wanted to my family. I've always had the dream of calling big league baseball, and I've been blessed with so much. A supportive wife who takes on every responsibility for 6 months while I'm flying around the country. And to our son, is lucky to have a rock star like you in his life. And you mean the world to me. Whatever this roller coaster takes, I'm glad I have you by my side. Beautiful stuff from Paul Severino. His partner, Tommy Hutton, he said, I am shocked, disappointed, and upset. My partner, Paul Severino, who is as well prepared as any broadcaster I worked with, will not be coming back. He helped this old school guy learn a little bit about analytics, broad insight, positivity, and humor on a night in and night out basis, with a little crying emoji from Tommy Hutton. And according to Barry Jackson, as I finish off the reading here before I get into my thoughts, they said, initially, after telling Paul Severino they intended to bring him back next season, FanDuel Sports Florida informed him today that he won't be offered a new contract. Another odd parting, they dumped Rich Waltz years ago. And according to Barry, apparently they still plan to do rotating analysts. I think part of that is because Tommy Hutton doesn't want to do it full-time anymore. Otherwise, I don't know why they would go with anybody else besides him, and that's not a knock on anybody else. That's just a positive rub on Tommy. He is just the best. But, you know, at his age, I don't think that he wants to do it full-time anymore. I think he likes doing the scatter. I think Rod Allen does a good job. Gabby when he's in there, Jeff Nelson. You know, they've had a bevy of guys. And, yeah, it's a bummer to hear that about Paul Severino. As somebody in the media workspace, I hate when people lose their jobs because you do know that there are very few roster spots anywhere in this thing. You know, the places are shrinking by the day. Media becomes more broad and national. You got to become a little bit more innovative on where you go and find your lanes. Why I'm you know, thankful for all the support we get on this community for sure. I'm definitely not, you know, candidly, I'm not as heartbroken about Paul as I was about Rich. I thought Rich Waltz was the best the Marlins had ever had, and I thought that him and Tommy Hutton in particular were the best that the Marlins have ever had. And when they got rid of both of those pairings, I was beyond furious, but my love for the Marlins was at a different place. So if there is a young fan out there who's watching this and Paul Severino was your guy, I totally understand it because the guy was a pro's pro and did a bang-up job. So I don't want to make it sound like I don't think Paul was really, really great. He was. He was good at doing his job, had pretty much a thankless job because anybody who has to broadcast for where the Marlins have been out over his 7 years is, you know, I mean, you're basically having to carry there's nowhere to run for 162 games. So you have to carry the most hardcore audience, you know, few as they may be as the years go by. But you're for the ones that do tune in every single day or just love baseball, it is a thankless job. It is one of those where I'm sure, yeah, he loved it, but he's got a couple of interesting challenges this way that Rich Waltz did not. Rich Waltz, first of all, was paired off with Tommy Hutton from the get, and those two just were lightning in a bottle, interesting chemistry. Paul, there's a couple of things that went against him. First off is they paired him with an analyst who sounded exactly like him. And I think almost, as a guy who does radio, like almost to a mockery from other radio hosts. Like I literally like remember us talking about this and be like, I cannot tell him and the analyst apart. I can't tell them apart. They sound exactly the same. I don't know who's talking. I don't know if he's talking. And the guy, was Todd Hollandsworth. And I couldn't tell if it was Todd Hollandsworth talking. And it was like, and by the end of it, they started to get in on the joke before they let go of Todd Hollandsworth. But I was initially just happy for Paul in that move because I was like, well, listen, at least you're not going to be with somebody I could tell you apart from. But I didn't think he was doing a bad job. I just thought that was an odd pairing to be like, when anybody was testing this, did nobody notice that they sound exactly the same? It was a weird thing. It was a weird thing. And then, my love of baseball just probably isn't at the same. Like, I think part of it's probably just on me as a guy who doesn't like baseball the same way as I used to. And this was my first sports love. But I never thought, oof, this guy is doing a terrible job. And I think he actually had a really good, his phone go, hey, it's a Marlins win. I thought that was pretty good. I thought it was good. I think everybody got excited for it. The interesting thing now is, like, where do the Marlins go from here? Like, I don't know who's even, because Paul Severino was not on my radar when he replaced Rich Waltz. And as I said, probably was going to be a little bit prickly with whoever they replaced Rich with, because I think most Marlins fans, I would say he's probably their favorite play-by-play guy. I mean, I guess outside of like Joe Angel. So I don't know where they go with from here. I could see, and I'm doing this with no insight, I'm just kind of spitballing in the media industry. I've seen some teams have gone simulcast, radio, and television, and I could see the Marlins going cheapskis on it and just, maybe promoting Seeloff to TV. And even though I know it's not the Marlins, like, they're all in the same building. So I could see them maybe going like, hey, Seeloff does a good job on the radio broadcast. Maybe they send him over to TV and they just do TV and radio at the same time. If they don't, look, Rich Waltz is out there. I think he's calling games for CBS Sports right now. Would Rich Waltz come back to a Tommy Hutton reunion? Man, it would buy a lot of good grace with me. I would love to see it. I would love to see Rich Waltz back calling Marlins games again. I certainly would. Is he interested in that anymore? That's hard to say. I don't know. I don't know, what the economics of that are. I don't know what he's happier doing. I do know that would, with Conine having, I guess, some pull with Bruce Sherman, could that do something? And because, Conine's tried to do a lot more of instead of erasing Marlins history, he's tried to embrace a little bit more of it, where Jeter was basically trying to completely get rid of it. So, could they go that angle? I suppose that's another place they could go. Locally, I don't know. I don't know who else they would go with that has like because there's no like obvious in there as far as like, oh yeah, this guy's the obvious place that you go to go replace your broadcast. And then this whole idea that the Marlins are going to continue. I saw that Barry said they're going to continue to do the rotating analyst thing, and it was an odd thing. I think for Severino, like, another credit to him is to not have a consistent partner and have to work with somebody new all the time. That's a challenge, man. That's a challenge because you never know. Like, I think as a person who broadcasts, one of the things that I appreciate about having a talk show host partner every single day is like, I know where I can lean on, and I know where I could lean back, and I know where I could push the gas. I know where I can pump the brakes on some things, and I know my partner will pick me up. And it's not doing a game, but I do know that feeling of having a perfect on-air chemistry with somebody. So that had to be professionally tough, that they stuck him with that kind of a rotation and be like, oh yeah, you know how you want to do this, do that. Like, nah, you're gonna go with the you're gonna go with the idea that we're gonna go sticky with this guy and then this guy and this guy. So I'm not sure. For the Marlins, they certainly need to find a voice. They need to find, I think, somebody who connects with the fans, because it's not going to be easy, I think, in these upcoming years. I'm hopeful. Because that's the thing. One of the things with Rich that was great about him and Tommy, they didn't come in great years either. Like Rich was, I think, 04 was his first year, so he had a couple of good years to start there. But then like 06, I think him and Tommy's most famous call, his name is Dan Uggla. And Dan Uggla's a Rule 5 pick, but became obviously beloved with what he did with the Marlins. So I don't think it's necessarily a guy who has to be here during the great times. But yeah, I guess, if they could just put a more consistent plan to get the fans connected every single day, because this is the sport that has the most inventory. This is the voice you listen to the most. And I do think it's important. You look at any other team in town here that has a regular broadcaster, Joe Zagacki on the Canes, or for the Heat, Eric Reed and John Crotty, of course. And I mean, Steve Goldstein and Randy Moeller do as good a job as anybody. I love the job that those guys do. So I do think it's something that really does mean a lot to the fans, and so it's unfortunate that this came out where Paul was let go, because I certainly don't think he did a bad job. I think he did a really, really good job. Even if I didn't connect with him the same way that I did with a Rich Waltz, I can acknowledge the guy was a professional and did fantastic work. And so I just don't know where the Marlins are going from here. And unless it is replacing him with Rich Waltz, I don't know if I'm going to necessarily applaud anybody else, unless they're going to get some like crazy, unless Bob Costas is like, hey, I'm done with national broadcast, but I want to come broadcast Marlins games. I don't really know what's going to get the Marlins fan being like, whoa, that's going to get me to tune in every single night now. So that's my baseball media rant, everybody. I saw that story. I was like, I got to get some feelings out about this, because that was some odd news. I did not see them letting go of Paul. I thought that was an odd decision from them, and I don't really know where they go from here with that. But I guess we'll wait and see who's going to be calling games in April for him.